Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 752 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 24th of May 2024 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to Adam Beswick about his career change from mental health nurse to full-time author, planning for success in your author business, the importance of mindset, how changing genres and video marketing enabled Adam to grow his author business, how he uses multiple streams of income, and more. So that's coming up in the interview section. In publishing and marketing this week, good news on direct sales as Kickstarter announces new functionality to help creatives. They're introducing late pledges, a new feature that allows creators who successfully hit their funding goal to continue collecting pledges after the campaign officially ends. So authors have been doing this on BackerKit, but at the moment I quite like the ability to end the campaign. If you miss it, you miss it. But that is available now, so we'll see whether I do use that on my campaign. There are also improved backer surveys to help make our surveys easier for creators and more effective at helping us translate backer responses into actionable data for production decisions. So that's good. Again, I haven't seen any of this. This was just a press release that they did and a video and things. Plus, there's also a new Kickstarter performance team, which will help with marketing. And it's not available widely, but that might be interesting. It looks like a paid marketing service within Kickstarter. So great to see they're adding new tools as more and more of us move into selling direct. Writer Beware reports on a scam that is using the Alliance of Independent Authors name and brand to make it look real. But it is a fake invitation to take part in a book award, the Best Indie Books Awards, with a link that has official entry on it. So that is at writerbeware.blog, and it's always a good place to go if you get an email that seems too good to be true. Like, your book is amazing and has been selected for this publishing opportunity or this award opportunity or anything you haven't pitched for. The best awards and the best publishers are not randomly emailing authors. Sorry, they're just not. So writerbeware.blog and keep an eye out for that. There will always be more of these in every industry. It's not unique to being an author or anything. I'm sure you get emails about other scams, but as ever, be careful about clicking links. And if you don't know whether an industry body like the Alliance of Independent Authors is actually endorsing it, go to their website to check it out. In book marketing, I recommend having a listen to Gary Vaynerchuk on the Marketing Against the Grain podcast about the changes in social media and the marketing ecosystem, which also intersects with Adam's recommendations on marketing and video and things like that. As a result of that interview, in fact, within the first 10 minutes of starting the interview, I bought Gary's audiobook of his new book, Day Trading Attention, How to Actually Build Brand and Sales in the New Social Media World, which I now have in audio, and I also ordered the hardback, which I tend to do with things like this, which have strategic but also sort of useful information that I want to go back to. Because although I do like listening to audiobooks, I find I want a bit more detail sometimes. And this is a little tip here is that selling audiobooks for non-fiction particularly, make sure you have print editions available too. Now, Gary was around in the early days of Web 2 when social media really started out, and he and Tim Ferriss were actually my early influencers in terms of building an online business. And Crush It was a book I used in the early days, and I respect, Gary can be a little bit obnoxious sometimes with his energy, it can be a little bit much, but he has reinvented himself many times and has pivoted along the way. What I like about his audiobook narration is that he keeps going off script and riffing on things. I guess similar to what I do with these notes is that I prepare a lot, I read a lot of it, and then sometimes I go off script. And so I'm currently listening to that book, Day Trading Attention, and thinking about things as we're all still in the pivot for sure, because things are changing so fast. Also, as it relates to video marketing, if you have an aversion to it, as I do, don't want to put my face on video much, although there is some video coming in the next week or so with my Kickstarter campaign. But Brave New Bookshelf, episode 6, is great this week with Sana Chowdhury, where they go into camera-free video options for TikTok and other platforms, and how you can use various AI tools for video marketing. So yes, I haven't been through this in detail yet, but it is definitely something I'm thinking about with Gary and, of course, Adam and lots of other people talking about video. I know I should do more video. I'm sure you do as well, but it's always good to have more tools and more options for camera-free video. Lots of fun. So in AI news, the big news this week was Microsoft's Build event, where they unveiled Copilot AI agents, saying Copilot AI agents can soon be used as something like virtual employees that businesses can use for menial tasks like monitoring emails, carrying out a series of automated tasks, helping with employee onboarding, doing data entry, all without being prompted to do so. The company says the new Copilot abilities won't take over jobs, just the boring parts. Or the parts you don't want to do. I'm sure there's many of those things. They also introduced Copilot Plus PCs, the fastest, most intelligent Windows PCs ever built. All-day battery life and access to the most advanced AI models. Copilot Plus PCs will enable you to do things you can't on any other PC. Easily find and remember what you have seen in your PC with Recall, generate and refine AI images in near real time directly on the device using Co-Creator, and bridge language barriers with live captions, translating audio from 40 plus languages into English. The blog post says, "We begin a new chapter with AI innovation on the device. We have completely reimagined the entirety of the PC, from silicon to the operating system, the application layer to the cloud, with AI at the center, marking the most significant change to the Windows platform in decades." So it is likely we'll see something similar from Apple at their event later in the summer, and thus all computing hardware and most software will have AI at the center within the next few years. So I don't know how anyone thinks they're going to avoid this. But interestingly, I think it will probably become more invisible, like the internet. We just take it for granted and we do things on top of it. We use apps on top of it. We don't even think that we're using the internet unless it's broken. So I am also very interested in agents. I have talked about them before. They're not really mainstream yet, but this could really make them mainstream. Google's also got some agents. So they're already being used in things like coding. There's a site called Devin, Devin, which has sort of started in this area and now in Copilot. But if we go back to consider what I mentioned around camera-free video, I'm hoping there'll be a way for an agent to take my book. So let's say I've got a couple of agents, AI agent bots. So I finish a book, I give it to one of the bots and it analyzes it, comes up with 25 different video ideas, and then the next agent will make those videos, and then the next agent might add some music or something, and then the next agent will post those videos, and then the next one will analyze the metrics and then feed that back to the first agent, who will then make more in the vein of whatever was interesting. And that will leave me doing the writing, which I enjoy. So I don't know if that makes you excited or worried, but for me, a lot of this stuff, a lot of the AI stuff, a bit like they said, doing the boring parts. I mean, I like some marketing, but most of it I would love to have a virtual AI assistant to do. I'll obviously keep an eye on that and give it a go. But if this is Microsoft now releasing the next stage of PCs, obviously within the next, let's say 3 to 5 years, the older ones will become obsolete, and anyone who's on a PC, which, to be fair, is most people are on PCs, not on Macs. So it'll be very interesting to see how this works. And of course, if you're on a Google Chromebook or whatever they're called, that already has it in. So interesting times as ever. In personal news, well, I took my mum to see Hamilton, the musical, this week, and wow, what a show. Well deserving of the hype. If you've seen it, I hope you agree. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It demonstrates the power of story and an original take on a musical, and also live performance, and how fantastic it can be when done very well. In an era of digital, it is so different and so powerful. Now, I did learn a lot about American history, and I hope this is sort of used in schools in the USA, because certainly it makes you much more engaged. And I did check up with the facts later, and I learned a lot. We all also laughed at the English King. There is a funny character who is the English King. I also think the US Congress, as well as our Parliament, would benefit by debating laws with a rap battle, which was a particularly good scene. It's also a real memento mori tale. Remember, you will die. And there's a couple of songs that hit me, and no, I'm not going to sing. But there's a song called Non-Stop, and you can find all these on Spotify and Apple or whatever, but it's called Non-Stop. It has the lyrics, "Why do you write like you're running out of time?" about Alexander Hamilton's obsessive drive and his prolific written output. But I know how that feels, and maybe you do as well. I felt this keenly in the pandemic, and that's what drove me to walk the Camino, which is something I'd always said I would do, and then I suddenly felt like I was running out of time, and then writing Pilgrimage, and then writing The Shadow, the book that took me decades from first idea to finishing. And that lyric does keep running through my head, because we are all running out of time. So what do we want to write in that time? And there was another song which has the lyric, "The eyes of history are on you." And it kind of adds to the urgency to take action. And the story is about freeing the scrappy nation from the shackles of evil England. But seeing it over here is quite interesting. Obviously, it was meant to be sort of originally seen in New York. But over here, it gives us a different perspective, because we were once an empire. The country I am living in was once an empire with great power and influence, and all the good things that came from that for some people, and all the associated evils with it too, which made it very bad for some people, and that still ripple through into our history. And I was watching Hamilton thinking that the USA is now that empire. It is not a scrappy little nation trying to break free. So who is Alexander Hamilton of these times, and in what nations? Because this is not the end of history. We're just living in this particular time. Anyway, it's a hell of a show. It made me think about a lot of things. Great music, and definitely something I will not forget. I've also been working on marketing, as Spear of Destiny is finally launching this week on Kickstarter. So it will be this week, Thursday, the 30th of May. I sent the preview to my patrons and also to my ARC list, my Penn friends, which gave me feedback, and it helped me refine it even more. So there's a little tip: if you're doing a Kickstarter, definitely get some feedback, because the feedback I got has really helped. It's almost ready. jfpenn.com/destiny. That will be out this week as this goes out. And if you register for the pre-launch on that page, you will be notified. And there are some limited levels for writers, as well as the book special edition with a special cover as well. Or you can just follow along with the launch. I've prepped so much marketing. And in fact, I have made a load of videos. So there will be videos coming this week with my actual face. I did put my makeup on and do some videos, and I'll be sharing all the details of all the launch process with my patrons in an upcoming video. So thanks for your emails and comments this week. On the interview with Jenna Moresi on YouTube, Tammy Travis 1771 says, "Informative chat from two well-established authors about the process of writing, publishing, marketing and social media. Worth your time to watch." Thank you so much. And also, I saved this to Pinterest to revisit. Thanks. So that was really interesting to me, because I would never think about saving a video, whereas this wasn't a video. This was actually on YouTube, and it's just an audio. So that's someone, Tammy, thank you, saving a audio on to Pinterest. Fascinating. Laura Glueck said on Facebook, "Listened this afternoon in the car. You both have such lively voices. It really was a pleasure to listen. Thanks for the great content. Jenna and I have similar pre-writing practices. Good to know I'm not nuts." Absolutely, Laura. And Beth DeWeese said, I really enjoyed this episode in the Facebook comments on facebook.com/The Creative Penn. So please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, or message me on X at The Creative Penn. Or email me, send me pictures of where you're listening, Joanna at thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. And if you have seen Hamilton, tell me what you think. Did it affect you as much as it did me? So today's show is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid, because however you choose to publish, whether you go direct to readers or you go indie or you want a traditional deal, you need to make your book the best it can be. It is one of my absolute must-use tools in my writing process. I use Pro Writing Aid for every book, every short story, and even at the end of my big solo episodes, I'll put my draft notes here into Pro Writing Aid. I work through each chapter separately, which is more manageable than doing a whole document, although there are some awesome reports which are kind of offer you much more of an overview of the editing process and improvements for the whole manuscript. It will then go line by line, and I don't accept all the changes, of course, but it does help me find lots of problems, and it integrates with Word, Scrivener, lots of other writing software as well. You can also use the online version. So Pro Writing Aid knows all the rules of editing and helps you apply them. And of course, you can choose not to make the changes as you like. It helps with making your writing more active, finding repeated words, finding words you could improve, sentence structure, grammar and punctuation issues, as well as typos, spacing problems, and more. So why use software to help? Why don't you just learn it all yourself? Well, we all use tools to improve our process, and we are also often blind to our writing issues. It helps to have another pair of eyes, even if the eyes are software. So won't an editor do all this? Well, yes, they could do, but I'd rather pay my editor, Kristen, to fix the things that the software can't. As brilliant as Pro Writing Aid is, it cannot read the manuscript as a human and comment on the bigger issues like character development, inconsistencies or plot holes. So I use Pro Writing Aid as my essential editing tool before sending to my human editor. You can get the free edition or get 15% off the premium edition by using my link prowritingaid.com/Joanna. And I also did a new tutorial. I did that last week, so it's brand new. You can find the tutorial at thecreativepenn.com/tools, and the video is linked there. And yes, that is also a video. So this type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing, but my time in creating the show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 7 new patrons who've joined this week, and thanks to everyone who's been supporting the show for months and years. If you join the community, you get access to all my backlist videos and audio covering topics on creativity and AI, tutorials, as well as mindset and business. Behind the scenes of my Kickstarter launch is coming soon, and much more. The Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. So if you feel you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join more than 1,000 authors. Thanks to everyone who's been supporting the show. You are amazing, and I'm so glad you find the information useful after I've been doing this so many years. So join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Right, let's get into the interview. A.P. Beswick is the best-selling author of dark fantasy and YA fantasy books. So welcome to the show, Adam.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, I'm excited to talk to you. Tell us a bit more about you and how you got into writing and publishing.
Well, I started writing around 2017. I was a mental health nurse, working silly hours, really stressful environments. Absolutely loved my job, but needed a bit of an out at the end of my day. And I started writing bedtime stories for my children. And then it was my eldest daughter who said to me, or challenged me to write a proper story, as she said at the time. And I joked, by the time I've written it, you'll probably be old enough to read it. And lo and behold, 2.5, 3 years later, I had a story that was written, and I'd published my first book, which was Arnold Ethan and the Lions of Tsavo, which is now known as the Spirit Beast series, as I've rebranded that story last year. So that's really how I got into writing. I wrote a couple of books in that series. They were kind of YA urban fantasy. It was a bit confusing what genre it was in, and then spent the next 2 years figuring out how to actually publish them. Listening to all your podcasts, listening to Gemma Moretzi, Bethany Atazada, quite a few different indie authors to get hints and tips on how to publish those books. And it wasn't really until 2022 when I pivoted and released a new book in a new series, which was A Forest of Vanity and Valour, which was a dark fantasy retelling inspired by Robin Hood, that my career started taking off.
Oh, so interesting. So first of all, I love that you come from healthcare. I mean, I guess basically as a mental health nurse, I feel like you bring an attitude of caring from that job. And I've seen you speak, and I think that comes through in the way you are in the community, which I really appreciate. But I wanted to ask you about, you went full time as an indie author in 2023. So when we're recording this in 2024. And so this is a big decision. So you left that job, and can you just tell us like how you made the decision to leave the job and how you've dealt with that shift? Because I know it's a big deal.
Yeah, so the hardest part was convincing my wife that it was a stable career choice to be making. So yeah, throughout 2022, my book's trajectory started increasing, and it was late 2022 when I sat down with Mrs. Bez and kind of laid out the financials and kind of told her my intention that I really wanted to go full time. I did really enjoy my job. I was in a kind of band 7 post in the NHS in a complex commissioning team, which I did really enjoy and had a good sense of purpose. But the hours compared to the time it was allowing me to write and keep on track of everything that for my indie author side that was really gathering momentum made it quite difficult to juggle the two. Luckily, managed to convince Mrs. Beds that it was a good idea for me to go full time. But I think it was the 14th of February 2023 was able to leave that role in the complex care team in the CCG and become a full-time indie author, which was something that was incredible. Never thought it would ever happen. So 2023 was more about working on my foundations, which I had been putting into place in 2022, but making sure the foundations were right and that way I could progress and move into my 2024 plan, which was around growth. So 2023, my primary focus was getting into a good routine, a healthy routine, making sure I was still being able to write books that people would enjoy, as well as planning far enough ahead to make sure there's plenty to look forward to keep me motivated as well.
Well, on that, let's dig a bit more on what is working on foundations. You mentioned there a healthy routine and some planning, but give us a sense of what foundations you were working on.
Okay, so the entire time before I went full-time, 2022, when Forest of Vanity and Valour first started taking off, I had to learn fast with the networking side. What I mean by that is kind of replying to feedback and emails and comments on social media from readers, trying to build that engaged audience. So 2022 and 2023 was a really big focus on building those platforms, working on my newsletter, making sure that my business was set up correctly has been absolutely key. As we're all indie authors, our focus a lot of the time is just on writing the books. And what we actually forget is writing the books is only a part of that indie author career. We've got to be marketing experts. There's so many different hats that we have to wear, that one of the factors there as well was making sure that the business side was set up, which at first was quite overwhelming, but making sure that you're set up for success from the beginning is absolutely key so that you're not caught chasing your tail.
Well, on that, again, you come from healthcare. So how did you learn how to set up a business correctly? Because, I mean, I worked in business and I ran my own businesses. So that's always been easier, I guess, for me because I had that experience. So how did you learn that and how did you make sure you had the right setup?
So as a nurse, one of the things that is drilled into you from the first day of your training is to be a reflective practitioner. And a lot of those skills that I kind of adapted as a nurse, I've transferred into the author career. So that reflective practice is something that I've always done, seeing what's working, what can I change? If I was in that situation again, what could I do differently? How could I improve my responses? And running a business is very much the same. You're not always going to get it perfect, but you have to be susceptible to feedback and being able to adapt and be quick on your feet and pivot if things aren't going correctly. What I made sure I was doing is that I got a good accountant that was able to advise me very well on how to adapt and change as my business continued to grow. So, for example, going from a sole trader to a limited company, how to set that up to go into to being VAT registered. There's a lot of background stuff that can be quite overwhelming if you haven't got the right circle of people around you. So in having a good accountant, they were able to explain everything to me, answer any questions that I might have. And obviously I work more and more with them as my books have done better and better, as I've needed more and more support on certain elements of the business.
I love that you did that, because I also did that when I decided to leave my job as a consultant and do this. I planned to be successful, and I made a business plan for a 6-figure business, and it was like something that is actually very rare. So well done for doing that. But I do think there'll be people listening who are like, whoa, Adam did that quite quickly. I mean, so how do you have the confidence, since you started in 2017 really, but 2022 was when it really took off? How do you have the confidence to spend the money basically on things like an accountant earlier on in the career, when you don't necessarily know that things are going to carry on growing or any of that? And there are people listening who just don't know how they can make that step, I guess. So any tips around that?
So first and foremost, I invested in myself. It was easy to do when I was earning a full-time wage. Obviously, my time was spread a lot thinner, but when I was still working full-time as a nurse, I had an income that covered all my bills. So any extra income I was making through my books, I could just reinvest straight back into the business. So while I wasn't full-time and still had that main source of income coming in, I was using any money that was coming in to invest into those foundations I spoke about earlier. So I was paying for future books to be formatted and edited. I was covering the costs of my audiobook narrator for multiple books in advance while that money was there. And once all that stuff was paid for and I could see that the royalties were kind of going beyond what I could spend on the business, that's where I started saving that money to one side to make sure I had kind of 6 months' wages saved up for the day that I did go full time.
That 6 months, I also did the same thing. It's really interesting. I said to my husband, Jonathan, if I can't make this work in 6 months, then I will go back to my job. And I imagine you said the same thing, in that in fact, you could go back anytime, right?
Yes. Well, it's quite a surreal moment, really. So obviously, being a nurse, I have a yearly PIN that I have to register with the NMC. Last year, I renewed that, and it expires tomorrow, and I'm not going to renew it, which is a bit sad, but I haven't been practicing as a nurse for 15 months now, and I have the belief that my books and my publishing company are kind of going from strength to strength. So I guess you have to have that inner belief that you are going to succeed, because there'll always be that seed of doubt, and if you're not backing yourself, who else is going to back you?
No, I agree. Well, then I'm going to ask you a question that it came up a lot during the pandemic, and I've thought about it too, which is, how important is writing story when we maybe could do something more important, in inverted commas? Like, people would say, oh, I should save lives, I should become a doctor or a nurse instead of writing stories. So I wonder if that's something you've wrestled with, or any thoughts on that?
I think one element that how you could look at it in a way is that authors were kind of key workers in that pandemic, because everyone was trapped and isolated and alone, and a lot of people, and there was a resurgence in books in general, because more people were suddenly reading, because they had nothing else they could do. They couldn't socialize. So actually telling, if those stories didn't exist, there was a lot of people wouldn't have been able to find the escapism that they did during COVID. I continued writing. I was running a extremely complex service, learning disability service, near where I live when COVID hit. We were a week away from opening when we went into the first lockdown. So I was working with some incredibly challenging and complex individuals with autism, mental health needs, and challenging behaviours. And we had to carry out all that work during lockdown conditions. So we were going into hospitals, working with individuals, transitioning them from long stay hospital into living in their own flat in the community with the right levels of support. So writing was a release to what was an incredibly stressful time for me. So that was my escape. I was sitting down at either first thing in the morning, not so much last thing at night. And I'd just up an hour before anyone else in the house got up. That way there was no time lost with my family, that my writing wasn't impacting my family life. And yeah, just kept writing. And the more motivated I got with stories, with the odd challenge from Mrs. Bez, the more I found my stories were coming together a lot quicker.
I love that. And I actually have a quote on my wall. I only read it recently, but it helps me, which is by the horror writer Adam Neville. And it says, "If you are gifted with an imagination, it must be used." And I love that because you're obviously someone who also is gifted with imagination, and you're also gifted in other ways. But I love that you're using it. And as you say, we help people through our stories. And I know that took me a long time to really accept. And it's something I still think about. So yeah, I love that. So let's just come back to something else you said, which was in 2022, you pivoted. So you had the Spirit Beasts series that you rebranded, and then you moved into the retelling, the dark fantasy retellings. So why pivot? And is this a kind of writing to market aspect? And how did you decide to do that?
It was a bit of both, really. So I'd written and released I was in the build up to the second book in my Spirit Beast series, as it was called then. Sales weren't anything breathtaking outside of family and friends. I was finding it incredibly hard to market. Writing and releasing the books was difficult in the sense that we were having to scrimp and scrape every penny we had to do the formatting, the book cover design. So I was kind of limited to releasing one book a year. So I was actually sat watching the latest Robin Hood film with Mrs. Bez featuring Taron Egerton, and at the end of the film, I was having a bit of a grumble that I didn't like it. Mrs. Bez lost her rag with me and just kind of said, "If you think you can do better, why don't you write it?" So I just got the bit between my teeth and was like, right, okay. And then I sat down and thought, well, what if it was a Robin Hood story, but more a retelling? And then it kind of escalated to, what if it was fantasy retelling, so a completely new fantasy world, but it's more the trope of Robin Hood that you recognise. And then I was like, what if Blackbeard lived in this world, and the Pendle Witches and King Arthur and Merlin and St. George? And then my mind just kept escalating, and I was like, these could all be standalone stories that interconnect with characters that appear as, like in the first book, as a bit part character, but by book 3, they're a main character with a book around them. And it just grew from there. And I think I wrote that book in a few months, and it was the quickest that I'd ever written a story because I was hyper motivated once that concept started to grow. But yeah, it all came about because Mrs. Bez decided to challenge me because she was sick of me grumbling.
But look, I mean, there's lots of ideas that come up like that. So you wrote that book, but did you keep in mind the marketing? And how did you then discover that this was going to be the thing that would sell more easily?
I didn't. So at first I was looking at how I could speed up the process of publishing from a cost perspective. And I came across a platform called Kickstarter, which I'm sure everyone is aware of now. And I'm proud to say that my first Kickstarter finished about a month before Brandon Sanderson made it widely known that Kickstarter is a fantastic platform for publishing books. And with the money that I was able to raise from that Kickstarter meant that I could publish A Forest of Vanity and Valor, and I had enough money to cover the cost for book 2, which meant I could release that in 3 months after the first book came out, rather than a year, as up to that point my books were taking me about a year at a time to release.
So just tell us there so people get an idea, because you mentioned Brandon Sanderson. Of course, his money on Kickstarter is ridiculous. So how much money did you make on that first Kickstarter?
Around £2,500.
Okay, so let's say that's around $3,000 US. So this is not a Brandon Sanderson amount of money, but that was enough for you to take that and invest that in the books. So then let's talk about how you drove success from there, because I feel like you talked a bit earlier, you were building your engaged audience, you mentioned a few things, but you're kind of well known now around TikTok and using that platform. So talk about when you started to use TikTok and why you decided to go that way.
Okay, so it was in January, I think it was January 6th, which was a week before Forest of Vanity and Valor came out, that one of my friends who was my accountability partner, we'd had a conversation to say, like, we're going to make 2022 our year, and to do that, I knew that I needed to say yes to more opportunities and stop being overly cautious and avoiding scenarios, because I was always worried about what was going wrong or what could go wrong and the risk, rather than looking at what the reward could be. So my mantra was kind of, as long as it doesn't put my family at detriment, then it's a risk that I'm happy to take, regardless of how uncomfortable that may make me. And Rob challenged me to join a James Blatch's TikTok for Authors group, where they were doing a 5-day TikTok challenge, which was designed to get yourself on camera, start talking about your books on a video format. And I was absolutely terrified. I couldn't hold the camera. I tried filming myself and I was shaking that much, and it was ridiculous. There was only me in the room. So I did the challenge. I filmed a video. I think I released 3 videos a day, every day for 5 days, and become hooked very, very quickly. And I started posting about Forest of Vanity and Valor, letting people know about it, letting people know about me, introducing myself, trying different kinds of videos. And by the end of January, I'd made £100 without spending a penny on advertising. And that proved to be a pivotal, probably the most important part of my career so far. And now a lot of people might think that's a lot of work to do and look and think you've only made £100 profit, whereas my mindset was I've made £100 without spending anything on ads. So I did a deep dive. I looked at the content that was generating engagement, and I just started tweaking it like you would a Facebook ad, doing your A/B testing. And I kept trying different types of videos, and then continued posting 3 videos a day until I think it was the back end of April or middle of April that I had my first semi-viral video, which meant that from 2 books I made just around £2,000, which was really opened my eyes for what was possible from a video, from a content making point of view. So that was all the motivation I needed. So I started thinking, right, small term goals. Let's aim for continued to get at least X amount of sales every day for a whole month, or X amount of page reads, and then it was, if I can do £2,000 a month for 6 months, that shows this is sustainable, and just kept repeating that, trying different kinds of videos, releasing new content, but most importantly, keeping writing books, keeping the audience engaged and showing them what is coming in the future. As obviously it was a series that I was writing, and it just kind of went from strength to strength with the video marketing. In August, I had my first of 2022, I had my first viral video, truly viral video, which was about 2 million views, by which time I had 2 books out, but I also had the audio books produced with the money I'd made that year from my books taken off on TikTok. And then, it was just in that cycle of posting content. Not really, I wasn't chasing virality. It's fantastic when it happens because it can set you up for more than a few months. But the focus for me was keeping posting content, keeping engaged, keeping motivated, keeping growing that audience for the remainder of 2022 and beyond into 2023.
Oh, right. A couple of things I want to come back on. So first of all, your business model around platforms and things. So you've mentioned Kickstarter, but then you also just mentioned page reads. So how are you, and I think you also have your own store. So what kinds of setup have you got around sales, and how are you driving most of that revenue?
Okay. So obviously I heavily use video marketing to direct traffic and sales, but as everyone knows, with platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels, for example, you're not guaranteed that engagement. So your sales can't be as consistent as you might like. So again, this is why the foundations of having your own audience to tap into is key. So I think it was 2023, about August time, I wasn't really happy with the paid reads, what I was getting paid for paid reads. My page reads weren't necessarily groundbreaking. I have a lot of people that will buy the physical copies of my books. So in September, I set up my own store and I took all my books out of Kindle Unlimited and I took all my audiobooks from exclusivity with ACX, and I set up my own bundles on my store and started working with a company called Book Vault to print my books, so where they'll print the books and they'll distribute books, so I don't have to worry about having a huge amount of stock, and they're print on demand. And I started letting my followers know about it, and between September and December my store just completely blew up. It was absolutely insane how well it was doing, because people were really interested in that story. It wasn't just the books they were interested in. They liked the idea that it wasn't that I was completely unhappy with Amazon, but I think I'd be lying if I didn't say we all have grumbles that things could be better with royalty rates, things like that. And it just felt like everywhere I went to, us as the indie author and the creator who's put all this money and invested all this time into the product, was actually getting the smallest piece of the pie, which, again, when I get the bit between my teeth, it kind of sends me to a hyper focus. So my store became my priority. So I still left my books on Amazon, but all my links everywhere I directed people was just to my store. And I started hitting 5-figure sales on my store within that first month, and that's continued ever since. But what I was also surprised by was my Amazon sales were kind of matching what my store was doing. It was kind of neck and neck for the rest of the year, which is something that I really didn't expect. And yeah, so I've just gone from strength to strength. My focus now is having as many income streams as possible, just to protect, I've got a wife, a family and children to support. So I need to protect them as best as I can. And the best way I can do that with my books is have as many different revenue streams as possible. Doesn't matter how small that stream might be trickling in, because it all adds up down the line. So my books are on YouTube. I've got some audio books on YouTube. I'm just in the process of setting up Ream, which is a subscription platform like Patreon. That's something I've only started doing recently. I'm on Amazon. My books are up. My ebooks are wide now from draft to digital. They're on Find Away Voices, my audiobooks, and my audiobooks are on ACX as well, just on the frustratingly lower end of the royalty scale.
Yeah, oh no, I love that. And I really think this is something that a lot of people don't realise with the selling direct, is, as you've done and as I've done, is directing all the traffic to your store means that people will still look at it and a lot of them will just buy elsewhere. So that's what you've seen. But let's come back to the video. So you said originally you were in the room on your own, you were terrified, you had anxiety, you were worried about it. And look, I am someone who has not done much video because I just don't like it. I just don't want to do it. I feel like there's pressure as a woman to wear makeup on videos and I just cannot be bothered. And also I don't want to spend my time as a consumer. Like, I don't watch video. I'm not on TikTok or YouTube Reels or any of the YouTube Shorts, all of those things. And so I feel this massive resistance to video, but everybody seems to suggest that this is a very good thing to do. So if there are people listening who are like me and they're like, I just do not want to do video, what are your thoughts on people like me? Should we even bother? Are there ways we can do it without using our faces?
There's tons of different ways of creating short form and long form video content. I suppose you've got to find the balance of what works for you. Now, ultimately, if you've tried it and it just doesn't work for you, don't push yourself. Ultimately, you don't want to give yourself anxiety, but you're going to have to look at other either organic or paid ways to generate traffic. Now, video content is a great way as a new indie author to generate that interest and find new readers and potentially create that small level of income that you need to invest back into your business to then start building that sustainable growth over a period of time. It's not going to happen overnight, and there's too many people that will post videos sporadically over a month, once every 3, 4, 5 days. Like, your video content, you've got to show up every day. You've got to be creating. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're constantly trying to figure out what's working, what's not working. And when you think you've solved it, TikTok, Instagram, they all change their algorithms just to keep us on our toes. So it is about adapting. You have to have a strong mindset and a belief that you can achieve it, but you also have to be aware that it could take months. It could take 6-7 months of putting the work in before you start seeing the results. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think if you were to have a video take off on day one, you kind of psychologically have that expectation that you deserve your video to go viral every single time you post. And ultimately, TikTok, Instagram, they don't owe us any favours. It doesn't mean they're punishing us when a video doesn't go out. It just means that that given day, that given time, that video just didn't resonate with people. But there's absolutely nothing to stop you reposting that video another time. And again, that might work. Sometimes it might not work. Other times, at the moment, TikTok doesn't seem to particularly like reposted content. But the viral video I spoke about earlier, that got 2 million views on TikTok in August 2022. On Instagram, that same video has generated 10 million views with being posted quite a few times, because there's times where it doesn't get views, and then there's times where it just goes crazy and starts getting that engagement. But every time they do, it generates sales. And once you've created the content, you've got it forever. So you can repost that as many times as you feel comfortable doing. But if you don't post about your books, people aren't going to know about them. If you post about them, what's the worst that can happen?
Yes. And I think you're right. Everyone has to have some way of marketing, and whichever thing it is, concentrate on that. I mean, obviously I have the podcast, have a big email list, and I use more traditional methods. I think it's, as I said to you before we started recording, I came into this 2006, 2007, and I feel like I need to relearn a lot of things, especially as things change, as they do all the time. But that's why I love listening to you, and when you spoke at Seville, and I listened to other people, and it's like things do change. So while some things stay the same, some things change. I did want to ask you, so earlier you said that you were struggling to sell that first series and it was hard to market. So you only started doing TikTok on a series that did start selling. So is it that TikTok is not a magic bullet to sell anything? It needs to still be used for book series that are already selling? Or have you tried marketing that other series that was hard to market?
I have tried. I've completely rebranded the other series. I sunk quite a lot of money into having new covers designed, rewriting them, having them re-edited, because I wasn't happy with the editing the first time round. I'm happy with the books, but they don't make any significant amount of money. The readers enjoy it, which is what is important. And I know if I stopped marketing my Levanthria series and focused on my Spirit Beast series for a couple of months, they probably would start shifting more. But there's more books in my Levanthria series, which means that's my main income maker. So there is more of a focus. So I suppose I could be guilty myself of neglecting it, and it is part of my plan over the next few months just to start giving the Spirit Beast the series the attention that it deserves, whether that be looking at the more conventional ways of marketing, like your email newsletters and stuff like that, your paid promos, Facebook ads, which I can do. But I think what my focus is going to be is kind of splitting my time better. So I was at SPS Live last year, and Mark Recklow did a fantastic talk, and one of the take homes there was his 80-20 split. So I've kind of broke that into different segments. So 80% of my time, for example, this week, 80% of my time I've set for specifically writing, because I'm writing a new book. 20% is the business and marketing side of stuff. Now, within that 20%, 80% of my marketing will be focused on the Levanthria series, and 20% will be focused on other things that I'm working on, other books or other projects or new things that I'm releasing, if that makes sense. So it's just about balancing that time right to make sure that I'm able to market other series more. But it's always hard to, and again, it's a mindset thing. You can put a few videos out, and if they don't take, you kind of get deflated, and I'll naturally go back to my series that I know sells, which I can be guilty of.
Well, I mean, the fact is it's true, and many authors don't like it, but in every business, 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the books or 20% of the work. And I mean, that 80-20 rule works for so many things. And in a traditional publishing house with millions of books, only a small number of those are going to be the money drivers. And the same is true for us as authors, I think. So, and of my catalogue, there are books that barely sell a single copy in a month. So, I mean, it really is concentrate on the ones that do make money and then put time, as you say, into new series and other things that might be more experimental. But I did want to just come back on, we're recording this in April 2024, the end of April 2024. And in the US last week, President Joe Biden signed into law the ban of the app TikTok within the next, let's say, 9 months, unless it's sold from the Chinese owner. And it might not happen, or there might be a sale to somebody, maybe Mark Zuckerberg or whoever. Like, whatever happens, there are going to be some changes. I mean, even if it doesn't sell, there are always changes in the algorithms, as you said. So what is your advice to authors who might be worried about what might happen to TikTok if they're relying on it for a lot of traffic and sales?
Yeah, so you've got to have a backup plan. Now, TikTok has kind of blown up again in America with TikTok Shop. Now, we were fortunate enough to get that around 6 to 9 months before it kind of landed in America. And I know so many indie authors in America that are absolutely, like, their careers are thriving because of TikTok Shop, and I absolutely get why they would be worried, because TikTok Shop enables people to literally watch a video and buy a physical book there and then while still watching the video, which that level of integration can really drive sales. I use TikTok Shop. I've kind of pivoted to focus more on my store, but that's again just because the profit lines are better and they work for me. So again, it's just about how you want to manage that. I like to have my eggs in multiple baskets rather than all being in one. I used to just be on Kindle and Amazon and KDP. It was just over a year ago when all the horror stories were coming about people's accounts just being banned out of the blue because the crime being their books have been pirated by other people, which they've got no control over. And it frightened me, especially because I was quite damn dependent on my income from my books. So I made the decision then to start exploring wide options. It wasn't until 3 or 4 months later in September, having spoken to a friend of mine, a friend that I'd met, and her husband Laura and Ross Burton, where their focus was direct selling, that it really opened my eyes. And even after having that conversation and the difference it made for them, it still took me a couple of months to actually start implementing that change, because we're all scared of change, but we kind of have to embrace it. That, you know, the worst thing we can do as creatives is get stuck in a monotonous routine, because it'll just affect how we write, how we market our books. So just exploring different ways and different avenues of advertising, for example, which is what we're on TikTok for. It's a free platform for marketing our books, which is great, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be free. You've got to be ready to pivot and change at the drop of a hat. And it's us that has to change, not the platform. So use it while it's there. Use any up and coming platforms that you think might make a difference. But again, I'm in the UK, so it's not as scary for me, but I've got a big readership in America. Like 70% of my readers are based in America. So it could impact me massively. So again, it's using the time we've got to kind of inform people, let people know what your concerns are, try and build that connection to say, well, we don't know what's going to happen with the app. There's a link to my newsletter in my bio if you want to keep in touch in case anything happens here, or set up a store with the integrations, for example, like Shopify, so that you're not as reliant just on TikTok Shop or TikTok driving the traffic. And if you are making money, make sure you are investing that back into your business. So, for example, for the last 4 or 5, well, probably a bit longer than that, more 2 months, I've been investing money into Facebook ads, which are the bane of my life. I absolutely hate them. I think paid marketing is the biggest con going, because again, the marketing companies make more money than we do, and it just gets a bee in my bonnet. So, but I've had to kind of bite that bullet, because I need to find a way to get ads working for my Levanthria series, because I know that's the only way I can focus on new series that I'm writing or other projects that I'm working on from a video marketing perspective, because otherwise my attention's always going to be split between books. So I've got the video content I know that works, so I'm pivoted by running paid Facebook ads to my store to try and keep those sales coming in for one series, so I can focus on my other platforms, not just TikTok. and any other growing platform. So, for example, the last 2 weeks I've been more heavily involved on Threads because there's quite a big author community growing on there, which is great. So it is just that you don't get sucked into just having one avenue to generate traffic or generate that engagement. You need to be active over time, over multiple platforms, which in itself can be quite overwhelming. So you have to find a balance that works for you and that isn't a detriment to yourself, your family, or your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, everything we've learned since I've been an indie author as well is that things change, and often they move from free to paid. So Facebook used to be free to reach people, and then it ended up being mostly paid traffic. A lot of the stuff on Amazon has changed. You mentioned ACX. I mean, when that first came out, the royalties were much, much higher, and then they kind of ratcheted lower over time. So I think you're right. Everything that we do, you can't take it for granted that it's going to last. I mean, Twitter X also is another example of something that completely changed under new ownership. So yeah, very good to think about. But look, we're almost out of time, and you have been working on a new project. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So, well, I've got a few projects because I like to keep myself busy. So not only am I writing a brand new series in a brand new genre, which is lit RPG, which I am having an absolute blast with that. It's probably the most fun I've had writing a book in a long, long time. I've also set up a publishing imprint to start publishing books by other authors. And I've been working with a best-selling author, Cara Clare, creating a new pen name for a dark fantasy romance series that she has written that we will be publishing through my new imprint, which is Arcane Passion Press. And that comes out on the 28th of May.
Yes, so that should be, as this goes out, it will be tomorrow. So hopefully by the time this goes out, people can go and have a look at that. So do you have a whole new sort of website and a whole new sort of place for that? Or is that still through your main website?
Yes. So, so Mrs. Bez started working full time with me at the beginning of this year. So as there was just too much for me to do, because I like spinning plates, but some were starting to smash on the floor. And yeah, we've been busy behind the scenes kind of getting, again, all those foundations set up. So the website is live now, alexisbooks.com. We've got a profile on Ream set up where you can actually read the story for free at the moment. But when this goes out, you won't be able to anymore, as the book will be launching Kindle Unlimited. And yeah, the book is called The Jester, which is a fae fantasy romance.
Right. And tell people where they can find you and everything you do online.
Yeah, so my store is apbeswickpublications.com. My book, that's where I drive all my traffic. My books are also available wide on Amazon and digitally through Draft to Digital across a lot of other platforms. Same with my audiobooks, they're available wide. And I've got a website in development which will start integrating the Novel Gains community, which is the social media marketing side of things that I do, because I just like to keep myself busy, apparently.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time, Adam. That was great.
Thank you.
So I hope you found the discussion with Adam interesting and that it gave you some ideas around video marketing as well as for your author business and mindset. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, or message me on X at thecreativepenn, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Next week, I'm talking about the seasons of writing and of life with Jacqueline Suskin, which is very much focused on craft and mindset. In the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.